Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as Podcast.
Yes, welcome back.
Today we're going deep, deep, deep
Mhm.
into the world of one of the most famous rock bands of all time.
Arguably the most famous.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
The Rolling Stones.
The Stones.
They've been around for, what, 6 decades?
Over 6 decades. It's incredible. They've become this,
A brand.
a brand. Yeah.
Go on.
More than a band.
All right, so let's rewind all the way back to the very beginning.
Great.
1962, London.
Hmm.
What were they like when they first started out?
They were blues purists. They loved the blues.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Covering guys like Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley.
Mm.
Really steeped in that tradition. Which is kind of a surprise when you think about some of their later music.
Yeah, you don't necessarily think Ruby Tuesday when you think
Right.
early Rolling Stones. But even then, there was a hint of pop, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they had a knack for writing songs that could appeal to, well, everyone, not just the hardcore blues fans. But don't get me wrong, they were incredibly talented. And then they got Andrew Loog Oldham as their manager.
Well, he's the one.
He's the one. He told them, you guys got to write your own stuff.
Ah, so that's where it started.
That's where the magic began. The Jagger-Richards songwriting duo, the rest is history.
A legendary partnership.
Absolutely. And then comes 1964, the British invasion.
Oh, yeah. They were right there with the Beatles.
Side by side, but they were kind of the anti-Beatles,
A little rougher around the edges.
Much rougher. Dangerous.
That bad boy image. Did that help them or hurt them when they first hit the international scene?
I think it's a bit of both,
Yeah.
Some people saw them as a threat. Others, well, they loved the rebelliousness.
It was a different time, that's for sure. And then 1965, I Can't Get No Satisfaction drops.
Boom. First international #1 hit. Global superstars.
If you're enjoying this deep dive into the Rolling Stones, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future episodes.
We've got so much more to cover.
Tons of great stories right here on Tell Me More. Now back to the Stones. There's that story about Satisfaction, that iconic guitar riff.
Oh, yeah, Keith Richards. He just kind of threw it together, As a placeholder, really?
No way.
Yeah, he didn't think much of it. And it became one of the most recognizable riffs in rock history.
That's wild. So they follow that up with a string of hits throughout the 60s. Get Off of My Cloud, Paint It Black.
Oh, Ruby Tuesday.
It's so many. They were massive.
They were. It's hard to overstate just how popular they were. The soundtrack to a whole generation. And they weren't afraid to tackle serious issues either. Mother's Little Helper, for example.
Yeah, that was pretty bold for 1966.
Oh, yeah, singing about prescription drug abuse and a pop song. But at the same time, they were dealing with their own internal struggles.
Yeah, things weren't always smooth sailing within the band, were they?
Not at all. And then you have the whole Brian Jones situation.
Right, the late 60s were tough for him. Addiction.
Yeah, and he eventually leaves the band. And then in 1969, he dies. Under very mysterious circumstances.
That's gotta be hard.
It cast a real shadow over the band. A reminder that even with fame and success, there can be darkness.
It's a reminder for all of us, really. But they played on. Just 2 days after Jones's death, they played that iconic Hyde Park concert.
It was a tribute. Yeah.
And they were first called the greatest rock and roll band in the world.
Talk about a powerful moment.
Wow. So then they bring in Mick Taylor as the new guitarist.
And that changed their sound, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
He had this bluesy virtuosity, just incredible talent.
Gimme Shelter, Brown Sugar, that era.
Exactly. That's Mick Taylor's influence.
And that's just the beginning of the story. We're going to get into all that and more about the Stones right after this. Welcome back to Tell Me More. We're picking up our deep dive into the wild world of the Rolling Stones, a band that never seemed to slow down.
They just kept going, didn't they? We were talking about Mick Taylor coming in, bringing that bluesy sound.
Yeah, shaking things up. But then things changed again, as they always seem to with the Stones.
They became tax exiles in '71, remember?
Oh, yeah, they moved to France to save some money, right?
Well, yeah, partly. But it felt like more than that.
Yeah, it's like a statement.
Right. Like, we're not playing by your rules. And that energy, it went right into their music. Exile on Main Saint.
Ah, that album. Raw, gritty. Recorded in Keith's villa, wasn't it?
Basement of a villa, yeah. You can hear it, that atmosphere. Some say it's their best work.
I can see that. And then Mick Taylor decides to leave the band.
'74, yeah. That's when Ronnie Wood steps in. He brought a different energy to the band.
Different how?
Well, Taylor was more bluesy, virtuoso. Wood was more raw rock and roll.
Ah, so that swagger.
Exactly. And get this, he was hired as an employee at first.
Really? Not a full member.
Not right away. You wouldn't think the Stones would be so formal about business, would you?
It's funny, right? This wild band, but also really smart about their careers.
They knew what they were doing.
So now it's the late 70s, early 80s. Music's changing again. Punk, new wave, all that. How did they handle that?
Like they always did, they adapted, brought in some of those sounds, experimented.
Smart move.
But not everyone was happy. Some critics thought they were past their prime.
But people still flocked to their shows, sold out stadiums. What was it about their live shows that people loved so much?
It's an experience, not just a concert. You got Jagger up there, he's electric. And then Richards, cool as ice, those riffs.
It's iconic. And you can't forget Charlie Watts, right?
The backbone of the band, solid as a rock.
And they were smart about their music too, weren't they?
Oh.
Always remastering, repackaging, keeping things fresh.
Oh, they understood their legacy, how to manage it, market it. They were ahead of their time.
And then there's Bill Wyman, the bassist, decides to leave in '93.
The first one to leave since the classic lineup was set.
And yet they kept going. Got Daryl Jones on bass, kept touring, kept winning awards.
Breaking their own records for the highest grossing tours. They just kept rolling no matter what.
It's incredible. You have to wonder, what's their secret?
It's the music, the camaraderie, the business smarts. Yeah, but there's something else, something intangible.
That mystique.
Right. The legend of the Rolling Stones. They're more than a band at this point. They're an institution.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the Rolling Stones. What a story, right?
An incredible story. From blues clubs to, global icons.
It's really something. But as we wrap this up, there's this question that keeps coming back to me.
I think I know what it is. How do they stay relevant after all this time?
You got it. 6 decades, it's mind-boggling. What's their secret?
It's a lot of things, I think. The music, for one. Those riffs, they just get you.
Yeah.
And the lyrics, the swagger, it's a potent mix.
It's timeless, really. And it's not just the hits, really.
Right. You can dig into their albums, find these deep cuts, and they're just as good.
They never phoned it in, you know?
No, they were always working, touring, experimenting.
They never let themselves get stale. They had to keep pushing, keep changing, even if it meant maybe losing some fans along the way.
They've never been afraid to take risks or to stir up a little controversy.
Which is funny, because they were also incredibly smart about the business side of things.
Oh, yeah. They were pioneers, really. Marketing, branding, all of it. They knew how to build an empire.
It's that mix, isn't it? Rebels and businessmen, artists and strategists.
They balanced it all so well. And then there's that, that aura, that mystique.
Rolling Stones, man. It's a legend.
It's a feeling, something bigger than just the music, something that connects with people across generations.
And the story's not over, right?
Not at all. They lost Charlie Watts in 2021.
A huge loss.
He was the heart of the band for so long. People thought, well, this is it. They'll stop now.
But they didn't.
They honored his legacy, and they kept going.
They put out Hackney Diamonds just last year, 2023.
Their first album of new material in almost 20 years. And it was great. People loved it.
And they're still touring. Mick Jagger, in his 80s, still up there rocking.
It's incredible, really.
It's passion. It's dedication. They love what they do, and they don't want to stop. So what's the lesson here for all of us?
What can we learn from this band that just keeps going, defying the odds?
It's more than just music, I think. It's about following your passion, never giving up.
It's about being smart, but also being willing to take risks. It's about leaving a mark on the world.
They've shown us that rock and roll is more than just a genre. It's a way of life.
It's about being bold, about challenging the rules, and never, ever, ever giving up.
So there you have it. The Rolling Stones. An incredible band, an incredible story.
Hopefully you've learned a little something about them today, and maybe even a little something about yourselves.
If you enjoyed this episode of Tell Me More, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our future deep dives into, well, everything. Thanks for listening.